Good afternoon ladies and gentlemen, your boy Virtus here, and welcome to a video I wanted to quickly dedicate to using Mixamo to take a character from Mixamo, animate it, and then import it into Unreal Engine 4 and get it all set up and moving around so that you can actually play as that character. Now, Mixamo is a brilliant free tool that you have access to that you can use to upload your own characters or even select their own ones, and then it will generate you a set of animations for you to import into the engine. It's really cool, it's really awesome, and most importantly, it's absolutely free at the moment. It's a brilliant tool for prototyping your games, especially for those of you that can't animate so well like myself. So without further ado, go ahead and set yourself up a Mixamo account, and then from there we're going to show you some of the characters we have access to and then bring it into the engine. So while I'm actually setting up my character, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to tell it to open up the Unreal Engine 4 in the background, ready for us to create our new project. And while it's loading up, in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the store in the top left hand corner, and then inside of here we've got a couple of things we can do. First things first, before we get into any of the animations, I'm going to go to the characters tab, and I'm going to use this characters tab to find a character that I want to use. You can use all of these characters for your game if you want to. Now bear in mind there is some things you've got to keep into mind for, if you sell your game you may not be able to use one of these characters, but for just quickly prototyping, making a student project, or just a personal thing, these are absolutely great. Now the character that I like the most here is actually this awesome looking vampire character. So if I go ahead and click on this, it will give you a little preview of that character, and then from there you can rotate around it, you can see the back, the front, and personally I think this vampire looks really cool and I want to bring it into my game. It's really simple and really easy to do. So we've got this character here and it's in its T-pose. What I want to do is find it some animations. So press find animations over on the right hand side, and then with this you can see it's just giving me a list of some of the animations I can choose from. Now this is going to take quite a while as we're going to need lots of different animations, walk, run, jump and so on. So what Mixamo have done is they've actually created some animation packs. So if you actually go over to the featured tab on the left hand side and go over here, you can see we've got some packs for our character. So let's say you're working with a shooter game, you'd go for your pro rifle pack. If you're working with a sword and shield game, you might want to add that. You've got a zombie pack, and there's loads and loads of cool animation packs in here. Once again, they're all absolutely free, which is brilliant. So all you got to do is choose one. Now, for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm just going to go with the Pro Sword and Shield pack. And if I click this, in a second you can see my character is now going to start playing all of the animations that I've got from this pack. So you can see it can move backwards, forwards, left, right, and all of that good stuff, which looks really cool. So what I want to do now then is I'm going to show you how to actually get these into your engine. Now you could start off by just hitting view and download, but there's something that we need to do before we can actually use it inside of Unreal Engine 4. So what I'm going to do, instead of going to view and download, I'm going to customize the pack. And by doing so, what you actually get is you have access to a couple of different settings for all of these animations. So you can change the speed of the animation, the arm space of the animation, and also trim as well to make it a little bit smaller. And you've also got mirror and in place. Now generally you're going to want to leave all of these settings exactly how they are, as they work pretty much straight out of the box, and that's one of the reasons why I like Mixamo so much. But the one that I do want to work with is in place over here. So you can see the character is moving forwards, and that's all done in the animation at the moment. With Unreal Engine 4, we're actually going to have a character movement component that's going to be pushing the character forwards. So what we want to do is pretty much click this little in place thing here, and that is going to make your animations move in place. So they're going to run on the spot, and then we're just going to have all of the movement handled by the code inside of Unreal Engine 4. So what we want to do is we actually want to go through all of these one by one and just check that in place thing. So go ahead and do that. So just check in place and all that good stuff. Just go through these one by one. While you guys are doing that, you also want to create your new project. Now I'm just going to create a new project using the third person template, and then inside of this I'm going to give it the name Mixamo underscore vampire for now with all the default settings, and I'm going to let that continue to create the project while I go through these and check in place just to save a little bit of time. So do that for your jumping, your running, your strafing, walking, turning, and all of that good stuff. Some of these you won't get the option to, uncheck in place. It's really nothing to worry about. It's simply that it doesn't really need to move so much. So things like where you're turning on the spot or using your sword, you're simply just not gonna need to click, run in place or anything like that. So once you've gone through all of these, what you need to do then is proceed to view and download it. So press the little download button in the top right, and then what this is going to do is it's going to move it over to your animations folder, and then from here you can queue it as a download so you can download it onto your computer. So go ahead and do just that. So press queue download, leave all of these settings exactly how they are. Now generally you're not going to want to change these, but you can change things like the frames per second, the file format. FBX works best for Unreal Engine 4, so I'm going to leave it exactly how it is. T-pose, and then just press queue download, leave it exactly how it is. Everything is going to work straight out of the box for Unreal Engine 4. Once again, that's just part of the reason why I like Mixamo so much. So you can see at the moment it's processing our file here. What this is doing is pretty much just zipping it up and making it ready for us to download. So once it is ready, all we're going to do is just put it into a folder and then import it into Unreal Engine 4. So it says your download is available. All you got to do is press the big orange download button from here, and then it's just going to download it like any other file inside of your web browser, and you can see we've got it here. So while that's downloading, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to move this across, and I'm going to go over to my desktop and I'm going to create a new folder. This new folder is just going to contain all of the animations from the zip file and also the character file itself. So just right click on your desktop, and then from here just add a new folder. Now bear in mind for just a second, as my computer's being a little bit slow, where I'm trying to create this Unreal Engine 4 project and unzip this as well. So give it a second and we can do that. So also make sure you open up your folder for the zip file that we've just downloaded. But anyway, add that new folder on your computer and just give that the name vampire underscore Mixamo, or the other way around. It's entirely up to you. The naming doesn't really matter here. So I'm going to call it Mixamo underscore vampire. Open this up, so just press enter, double click it, do whatever you got to do, and then inside of here I'm going to add a new folder, and I'm simply going to call this animations. Now you're going to see exactly why I'm doing that in just a second. If I go into this folder, you can see just how many animations we've got here, and it's going to be a little bit hard to find other things if it's all cluttered up by the animations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my character, which is all the way down at the bottom here. It should just be called like the character name, and then all you got to do is just drag this into your main folder. So copy it to Mixamo underscore vampire, or whichever character you're working with. Go to your animations, and then what you want to do from here is select all of your animations, so which is pretty much all of the files apart from the one at the bottom for our character itself, and then you just drag it over to your folder just like that. So once that's done, we can actually start bringing it into our engine now. At the moment, inside of our project, we've got a little character here that we can walk forwards, backwards, left and right, and all of the turning is all handled by our code as well, so we don't really need to worry about the direction of the character for our animations. We just need to worry more so about the speed and then jumping as well. So let's go ahead and get this set up. So what I'm going to do is inside of my content browser here, I'm going to expand this. I'm going to go into my third person BP folder, and then inside of here I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm simply going to call this vampire underscore character. And then with this I'm going to open it up, so double click it, and then inside of here I'm going to add a new folder and I'm going to call it animations. So what we got to do now then, just like we did for the character before, we're going to grab our little folder that we made here, and we're going to go to the main folder, and make sure you always import your character first so that it can set up the skeleton. So drag in your character just like that, and then what we do is we go through these options, make sure your skeleton is set to none, and just press import. if you was to choose your character animations first, you won't be able to set up your skeleton and it's just going to break things. So import the character separately before the animations, and then you just press import. Give it a couple of seconds to load up, and then what we can do is we can import the animations, and that's going to take a little while. So while that's doing that, I'm going to go back over to my folder, and then from inside of here, I'm going to open up my animations folder ready to import it into the engine as soon as the character is imported. So, going to close the message log, don't worry about the little error that we got there. And then from here, open up the animations folder, and then just grab all of your animations, and then press Ctrl A, and then just click, drag and drop. And then for the skeleton this time, you want to set this to vampire underscore A underscore whatever. So just make sure it's exactly the same as the character you've just created. Now obviously if you've downloaded a different Mixamo character, then you'll have a different name, but it's really nothing for you guys to worry about. So you can see at the moment now, all of my animations are importing for our character. Now there is quite a few character animations that we have just imported, so it can take a little bit of time. Now bear in mind, we're not actually going to use all of these animations. So what you might want to do before you import them, to save yourself a little bit of time when you're importing your animations, is just go through this folder and figure out which ones you're not going to use. So if it's entirely going to be sword and shield, you might want to get rid of your casting. If you don't want crouch in your game, you delete your crouch animations and so on. It's going to save you a little bit of space on your computer, and it's also going to make things a little bit quicker when you're going inside of Unreal Engine 4. So this next step is going to be a bit of an odd one. So if we click on our animations just to see how it looks, we can check to make sure our animation is working smoothly and our character has come in exactly how it should. Now, as of right now, you can see my character is slightly translucent. That's just an issue with the material. It's not going to happen on all of the characters, it's just one that seems to have happened on the vampire. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a new material for this character using the textures that was imported. But the important bit being is that our animations are playing smoothly, which seems to be the case. We can double check that once the material's all good. So I'm going to open up my character, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to create a new material, and I'm just going to call this vampire underscore matte underscore Mixamo, and then with this I'm going to open it up, give it a couple of seconds to load up, and then from there I'm going to drag in my specular, drag in my normal, I'm going to drag in my emissive, and I'm also going to drag in my diffuse. And then we're just going to hook these up to the corresponding spots in here. So my normal, I'm going to hook up to my normal map, and then my emissive, I'm going to hook up to my emissive, and then my specular, I'm going to hook up to my specular, and then my diffuse, I'm going to hook up to the base color, and then just go ahead and press apply. And you can see this time it hasn't come out looking translucent. That's all good. If you guys do have any issues like that with Mixamo, that's all you've got to do is just use these textures and the materials that it's imported to create your own one. Open up your skeletal mesh, and then we can just reapply the material that we've just set up. So just choose this from here, vampire underscore matte underscore Mixamo, and you're going to see it's not so translucent. Now bear in mind, the shaders are still compiling, so it can take a little while for your colors to come to life. There you are, and now you can see our characters looking all good. What I do advise that you do is you just quickly fly around your character backwards, front, and all of that good stuff, and make sure it's come in perfectly. For me, I think this looks all good, so I'm going to continue and go back to my animations. And then from here, we're going to do the same thing for animations, make sure they're all running smoothly, which seems to be the case. Just go through all of these animations one by one, and just double check that. But to me, it seems all good. So, moving on now, let's go ahead and show you how you can actually get it into your game so you can actually play as it, because at the moment we've just got this weird little mannequin skeleton character. So, what we've got to do is we've got to find this third person character of ours in our game. You can create your own character blueprint if you want to, but for now I'm just going to work with this one. So I'm going to right click it, and I'm going to find it in the content browser, and you can see that's just third person character. Double click this, and then in the components panel we are going to look for our skeletal mesh, which is this one over here. Go to the viewport so we can see what we're actually working with, and if we just set our skeletal mesh to our new vampire character, you're going to see that's going to bring it in here. And if I actually take a look at my viewport in the game itself, you can see subsequently it's also brought it into the game. Bear in mind it's not going to be animated at the moment, but that's something we'll be doing in a second. So with this, we need to make sure it's actually fitting within our capsule. Our capsule is a little bit too small for it, so we need to scale down our character. So just use the select and scale objects tool, and then just try and scale it down if you can. So just go ahead and do that, but you can see at the moment it's snapping and it's hard to get it the right size. So what I'm going to do is turn off my snapping in the top right here, and then I'm just going to try it again. So if you ever get that issue, just turn off your snapping and then just move it into place just like that. He is centered, but the head's a bit forwards, but it's nothing to worry about, but that's all good. Now, in terms of actually getting it to move, we need an animation blueprint for that, because at the moment, we simply haven't got one. So if I compile now, and if I was to press play, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. He's standing here in his T-pose, and he's just flying around like a plane. He can jump, he can run, but it's just going to stay perfectly still. So we need to tell the engine which animations to play and when to play them. So let's see if we can do that. So go back into your vampire character folder, and then inside of here we need to create that animation blueprint. So go to animation blueprint, and then choose the skeleton that we just created when we imported the character. So for me, that's vampire _a _ lust, press OK, and then just give this the name vampire _animbp. And then just double click this to open it up, and then from here we need to hook up some animations. Let's just see if we can hook up, more than one animation. It's not something that we can do, it's one or the other. So what we need to do is we actually need to tell the engine to have different states for this character, and then for those states we're going to tell it to go into them depending on some variables. So if it's running, we're going to have a variable for that for speed, so we can check to see if it's running, and if it is, we're going to tell it to play the running animations. If he's not running, we're going to tell it to play the idle animation, and so on and so forth. So what we're going to do that is we're going to right click and type in state machine and add a new state machine. Hook this up to the result, and then if you click on the new state machine label at the top here, just give this a name vampire _ states. Open this up, and then from here we can create the different states. All of these are going to come out from our entry node. So click and drag this, and then add the first state. The first state for this is going to be our idle state, so that's just going to be when they're sitting there and they're going to be breathing and that kind of stuff. And then if we click and drag out, add another state, and then from here just call this walk/run. And these are going to be the two states that we're going to have for our character to start with. So idle state, walk state, and that's all good. Open up your idle state and I'll show you how to put your idle animation in there. By doing it with states this way, it allows you to have an animation for each and every single one of these states, which is perfect. So go ahead and hit compile, and you can see now our character has come to life, and he's going to start idling. We now need to do the same thing for walk and run, but we're going to do that in a second. So press play, and at the moment you can see that our character isn't idling, and that's because it hasn't got our animation blueprint attached to it. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to go over to my blueprint character again, in third person character, and then inside of here in the viewport, click your mesh, and then for the animation class, set it to the one that you've just created, so vampire _animbp, and you can see now then that they are going to be idling, and he's going to look left, he's going to look right, and all of that good stuff. If we press play, you can see it starts to come to life. However, it still doesn't go into a walk and run state, so we need to set that up in just a second. So what we're going to do is go back to the animation blueprint, and then inside of here we are going to create another link to go back from walk to run to idle. The reason why I'm doing that is because when the player slows down and they stop running, you want it to be able to go back to idle, so just do that. And then for our walk and run, you could just hook up a running animation in here, but there is a better way of doing it, so you can blend between walking, running, walking left, right, and all that good stuff. And that's all done using a blend space, and that pretty much just allows us to blend between, you know, animations depending on some variables. Those variables for us are going to be direction and speed. So let's show you how you can do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close this, and then inside of my character folder here, I'm going to right click, go to animation, and create an animation blend space. Use the skeleton you created earlier on, that's vampire underscore, that's your vampire character, and just call this vampire underscore BS for blend space. Double click to open this up, and then from here we have our little graph at the bottom, which is going to allow us to plot our animations on there based on these two axes, which are currently set to nothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the axes up so that it knows which one is which. So go over to your axes settings in the top left, horizontal and vertical. Top one is going to be called direction, and then the bottom one is going to be called speed. And you can see it's now added that onto our little graph here, so we know what's what. Now we want to change the minimum and the maximum values for this graph, and we want to make that according to our minimum and maximum speed and minimum and maximum axes for turning. So for the direction, it's going to be -180 to 180, and then for the vertical settings, for the speed, that's going to be 0 to 600. Now the reason why we're using 600 as the maximum is because that is our maximum default value inside of the character movement, something that you'll sort of learn as you go into some more advanced tutorials. And the same goes for direction, that's sort of the directions that you're going in. Now bear in mind, we're not going to be using this so much as our code actually automatically turns our character, so when I move left, it goes left. When I go right, it turns it right, which is really cool. So what I really need to do on here is just plot in my idle animations for 0, and then my walking and my running as well. So let's show you how to do that. So grab your idle animation in the bottom right hand corner in your asset browser, just any one of these. You've got a couple to choose from. The first one is just going to work fine for me, so select that. Drag it to all of the points at the bottom on our graph here. There should be 5 in total. And you should start to see our character really come to life now. So, also with this graph, if you hold down shift, you have this little green icon that's going to follow your mouse. And this is going to allow you to preview your animation blend space based on the direction and the speed, which is quite nice. So we'll use this in just a second. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to find my walk in place animation, and I'm going to put this about halfway at the 300 for speed. So you can see here now, if I hold down shift at 0, he's not moving at all. If I hook it up to 300, which is about half the maximum speed, he's going to be walking. And then all the way up at 600, we're going to find our run animation, and we're just going to hook it up on there. So run in place, all the way at the top here, and you should be able to see it fade now. So hold down shift, 300, it's walking, all the way up at 600, you can see him running like a madman, and it looks pretty cool. So what I'm going to do now then, is I'm going to close this, and then from there I can now hook this up to our animation blueprint. Because at the moment, even though we've done that, it's not going to work because it's not in our animation blueprint. So, open up your animation blueprint, and then for here, in our walk and run state, what we're going to do is hook up vampire underscore BS, and then just hook it up to the end result here, just like we did for the idle. However, as of right now, it's got no variables for direction and speed, so it doesn't know where to get those directions from and where it gets that speed from. So what we've got to do is we've actually got to drag this out, and we've got to promote both of these to variables to create new variables that we can use within this animation blueprint. So the first one, we're going to keep it as named direction, and the second one we're going to do the same thing, just give it the name speed, and then just drag it out just like this. Now, bear in mind, these variables are still empty, they've got no value to it. We need to get that from our third person character. So I'm going to show you how to calculate the direction and the speed in just a second. So, what we're going to do is go over to our event graph, and then inside of here, using our update animation, we are going to drag this out and tell it to cast to the third person character so that we can get a little bit of information from it. for the object, we're just going to type in try get porn owner as the object wildcard. And then from here, as third person character, drag this out and get two values. So the first one is going to be get actor velocity, or get velocity even. The reason why I'm getting velocity is because it's very similar to speed in terms of physics, and we can turn that into a speed value in just a moment. And then the next one is going to be get actor rotation, so just drag that in there like that. So as third person character now, what we're going to do is we need to calculate the direction. So right click, type in calculate direction anywhere on here, and then just hook this up to the execution from your third person character. And now what it's asking us for is velocity and the rotation, which we have just got from these variables. So I'm going to drag this up to make them match the order. And I'm going to hook my velocity up into here, and then I'm also going to hook up my rotation into here as well. And then with this return value, this is going to be calculating the direction and the speed based on these numbers that we've just given it. So I'm going to go to return value, and then from here I'm simply going to type in set direction, and that's our direction variable set up. As for speed, that's really easy to set up as well, so drag this out, type in vector length squared, and then what we're going to do with this is we're now just going to tell it to set the speed, as the vector length squared is going to convert this. So hook this up just like that, and we've now got our direction and our speed. If you hit compile, there shouldn't be any errors apart from these ones. I'll explain that in just a second. So go over to your vampire states, and then inside of here, if we take a quick look at these little things here, these are something called a transitional rule. These transitional rules pretty much tell the engine when it should go into one state and not the other, and so on. So basically we just need to link these to our direction and our speed variables. So starting from the top, go over to your idle and walk to run. So this is pretty much our way of telling it when it should start running. And the easiest way to calculate that is using our speed. So what I'm going to do is drag this out, and I'm going to type in float, and I'm just going to check to see if the value is more than a certain value. So get my speed, and let's say if our speed is more than something like 10, for example, then it's going to return true. So you can see here, returns true if A is greater than B. B being 10, A is our speed. Now bear in mind our speed goes all the way up to 600, so 10 is a very, very small value, and you know that can just tell it if it's walking or running, and that's all good. So what we need to do now then is go back to our states and do the second thing for going back to walk and run. Now for going back, it's very similar, we just need to do the opposite now. So what we need to do is drag this out, get float, and this time we are looking for less than, and this time if it's less than 10, we're going to tell it to go back to idle. So get your speed, press 10 in there, and then just hook this up. So if you compile it now, press play, and if we walk forward, you can see he immediately goes straight into our walking state, and it transitions back as well, which is quite nice. Now if we walk left or right, you can see it turns it automatically using code, which is quite nice. But for a simple third person character, we've got a pretty good setup. Now one thing I do want you guys to bear in mind is it's a little bit jerky when you stop walking and you go back to your idle. There's a really simple easy fix for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my vampire blend space real quick, and I'm just going to change the interpolation time. That's just going to give you a little bit of fade between your animations. So interpolation time, I'm going to set this to 1 instead for both the speed and also the direction. If I close this now, press play and walk forwards, you can see it's just that little bit smoother. But anyway, you can see now then that our character is a lot smoother and it looks really nice. But most importantly, we have managed to get a character from inside of Mixamo into Unreal Engine 4. That is pretty much everything for this video, guys. I've got loads of extra tutorials if you want to check them out. So if you wanted to, you can learn to create like a first-person shooter game, an RPG game, and all of these actually use Mixamo animation, so it just goes to show you just how far you can get with this stuff. Once again, guys, thanks for watching, stay awesome, keep creating, your boy Virtus, signing out. This series was made possible by you guys supporting me on Patreon. If you want to help create other series like this, then check out my Patreon page in the link in the description.